Hey guys, it's me again, Eric here at Mountaintop 9, and I wanted to do a video again where I talk about anthology TV horror shows that I grew up with when I was a kid and that I still enjoy to this day. That is a topic that I remember one of the first videos I ever shot and uploaded onto YouTube a long time ago was a video where I did just that. Now that video I can't find. It's not up anymore and I don't know where I have it. I know I have it saved on a hard drive, but I can't remember where it is. I can't locate it. So I want to do a video again just reminiscing about anthology horror television. You know, when I was growing up, that was like second nature. You'd be watching TV, and then all of a sudden, late at night, at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, you'd hear that creepy intro for Tales from the Dark Side would kick on, or the show Monsters, and then later on, we had Tales from the Crypt. So I just have a lot of great memories of those anthology horror shows from the time that I was a kid. And so I'm just going to spend the next few minutes of this video talking about some memories of those shows growing up. Now, the first one, let's just start out first things first and talk about Tales from the Dark Side, because there are a few very noteworthy things that I want to discuss in regards to that show. First of all, that intro to Tales from the Dark Side is one of the creepiest motifs ever laid down on record, period. And that sound, that melody, that keyboard line goes so well with that serene, peaceful footage of the countryside and of the trees and of the bridge and everything. And there's just something so insidious about the way you listen to that narrator and what he's saying. I think it just strikes at something very primal inside of people, at how we're able to see layers and things, how you can just take something so peaceful and serene on the surface, and then that narration, and then the fact that you have that creepy, goose pimple inducing music playing, that just really sends a shiver up your spine. As soon as you hear that keyboard sound and the notes that it's playing, it's just something, even if you're a kid. I've always found this fascinating, guys. Do you ever find it fascinating that you don't have to tell a child? Like, no one told me when I was 3 or 4 years old, that's creepy music. That's music that's meant to induce fear in you. You don't have to be taught that. It's something very primal. Think about this, guys. People have evolved over the years to fear certain things. Like most healthy, rational people, from the time they are little, they would recoil at the sight of a large spider going into a threat pose and baring its fangs. Or if you're walking in the woods and you see a snake coil up and it's looking like it's going to strike, we have a natural, inborn, hardwired fear of things like that. And it's for our own self-preservation. It's for our own survival that we fear things like that. That we fear a snake bearing its fangs, a venomous spider bearing its fangs. We fear things that could cause us harm, that could cause us death. All right? The same way we have that hardwired survival kind of thing within us, the same way we have that, it's the same with music. Have you ever thought about that? I've thought about it many times. Because, one of the scariest pieces of music I think that there is for the movie Mountaintop Motel Massacre. I've talked about it so many times. My grandma didn't have to tell me when I was 4 years old watching that movie that was scary music, meant to evoke fear, that it invokes dread, that it causes an unsettling feeling to wash over you. I didn't have to be taught that, and no one does. It's hardwired into us. Certain notes, when they're played together in a certain pattern, in a certain order, There is something that is just, I can't even put it into words, but isn't it amazing that certain notes played and arranged in a certain way just instantaneously evoke an emotion of fear? And the same way goes with notes that can make you feel happy or notes that can make you feel sad. But that fear quotient, it's just something that happens when you put notes in a certain order. And it'd be the same when I was a kid, hearing the Halloween theme, okay, that John Carpenter came up with. Automatically, as soon as you hear that, you know that means fear. You don't even have to see on the fucking screen a guy with a white mask holding a butcher knife going after a babysitter to know that that music is scary, okay? You hear it and you know it. The same thing with that music for Tales from the Dark Side. It's the same way. You hear that music and you know that it's something very creepy and unsettling. And I think that's one of the most powerful and enduring things about Tales from the Dark Side. And it's why it's as memorable as it is. A lot of it has to do with that intro. You read any review, you hear anyone when they reminisce about Tales from the Dark Side, and they're going to tell you the same fucking thing. They're going to tell you, man, the intro to that show gave me chills. That intro creeped me out. And it does. And there's something so weird and unsettling about the fact that it's showing you those peaceful scenes. It's showing you the trees. It's showing you that creek with the rocks and the water flowing very serenely. And then you see the covered bridge. And you're hearing that music at the same time that's telling you, no, it's discombobulating. Think about it, to your brain. Your eyes are seeing something peaceful, but your auditory receptors, your fucking ears, are hearing something that's so unsettling and sinister, and that's making you feel fear at the same time. So it's a very discombobulating feeling. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when Wes Craven was coming up with the idea of like Freddy Krueger, and when they came up with the idea of what he was going to wear, Wes Craven decided that Freddy Krueger's sweater should be a red and green color because Wes Craven had read that those two colors, that color combination together, was very jarring, very grating and off-putting to the human eye. So that's why he did that. That's why Freddy's sweater was red and green. If you didn't know that, I find that very fascinating. And it's the same thing with this combination in the Tales from the Dark Side intro of the music and the images on the screen. It's just discombobulating to our brain. We can't make sense of it. Our primal instincts kick in and we feel fear. We feel dread. We're unsettled at that confusion going on. So anyway, love that intro. It just sets the tone perfectly. But here's the sad thing. Tales from the Dark Side as a show, all right, is just so hit and miss, it ain't even funny, my friends. So many episodes. It is sad how many fucking episodes they decided to make of that show and decided to go a comedic route. Because think about this. They have one of the greatest intros of all time for a horror anthology show. It sets this mood so perfectly of fear. And then you decide that the episode then, the next 20, 25 minutes, is going to be some stupid, laughable shit. Something that's not even scary. How many Tales from the Dark Side episodes are there where they're just fucking comical? Or they like go in some kind of real sappy direction. There are too many to mention, my friends. The standout episodes, are good. There are some solid standout episodes of Tales from the Dark Side, like Trick or Treat and Halloween Candy. And those two are very, very standout episodes. Inside the Closet is a very memorable episode. There's an episode with a teddy bear, okay, with glowing red eyes that terrorizes this family. When I was a kid, that was like... that episode scared the shit out of me. It's an episode, I believe it's from season 2. It's called Ursa Minor. Look that one up. This teddy bear comes to life. It's terrorizing this family. When I was a kid, that episode, it has a very dark tone to it, okay? And still to this day, that episode holds up. So that's a standout episode. There's an episode called The Last Car that really stands out to me. Cuddy Black Sow is a very chilling episode with a very frightening ending. So Tales from the Dark Side has some standout episodes. Okay, Anniversary Dinner is a good one that involves this old man and his wife, and they turn out to be cannibals. That's a great fucking episode of that show. So Tales from the Dark Side. One more I want to name from Tales from the Dark Side. It's called The Circus. That's a really good one too. Very, very creepy episode. So you see how I'm kind of throwing out there some very memorable episodes of Tales from the Dark Side. The only unfortunate thing are those are the real diamonds in the rough, as it were. I wish more episodes. I mean, let's face it, that show went 4 seasons, okay? And you think that it would just be chock full of memorable episode after memorable episode, but the truth is it really isn't. Those are the standouts that I was just naming. I may have forgot a few here and there, but to me, those are the ones that immediately jump to mind as must-watch Tales from the Dark Side episodes that I really like. There's another one from Tales from the Dark Side called The Giesen Stacks. I know it's a weird name and all, but that one's a memorable episode as well. But yeah, the problem with Tales from the Dark Side overall is just there's an episode called Answer Me where this woman's getting these phone calls that just won't stop. That's another one that jumps to mind. But overall, my biggest critique of Tales from the Dark Side is there are too many episodes that try to strike this comedic tone, okay, or just not memorable. Not scary, not a dark atmosphere. I wish they would have consistently tried to be frightening, because if they had consistently tried to be frightening, it would have been one of the best shows that ever aired on TV, and it'd be known in a more complete way than just as the show with that really creepy intro. It needed consistency, consistent episodes to match up with that great opening. Now, the next show that I want to mention, because I really want to talk about 3 more shows in particular that made the biggest impact on me growing up. Another show that made a big impact on me growing up was Monsters. Now, Monsters was the show that they started doing right after Tales from the Dark Side, okay? And overall, Monsters is more consistent than Tales from the Dark Side. And what I mean by that is Monsters is just overall more entertaining. There was usually some kind of creature, some kind of different monster, just like the title says, week after week. So that really keeps you engaged, okay? That fact keeps you grounded in more of a horror setting, more so than Tales from the Dark Side. There were too many fucking Tales from the Dark Side episodes that would go off in like a sci-fi direction, or some kind of fucking... You know, guys, the reason I never really got into Twilight Zone, I like Twilight Zone when it's doing horror stuff, but a lot of times it gets off in this, like, just this saccharine, syrupy fantasy direction, okay? You know that movie, Twilight Zone, the movie, for instance. You know that fucking episode about at the old folks' home with the old people, and... you know the mood that sets, that really Steven Spielberg syrupy, lightweight fucking atmosphere, that kind of shit. I don't like that stuff, my friends, okay? I don't like that stuff. That's why I'm not a fan. That's why I'm not a big fan of the Poltergeist movie. Because you had Steven Spielberg meddling with that movie too much instead of it being a Tobe Hooper horror movie through and through. There was too much meddling from Steven Spielberg. It's so obvious. That movie, Poltergeist, has Steven Spielberg's fingerprints all over it. All over it. Alright? But anyway, back on track. That's the reason I'm not a big Twilight Zone fan, though, is because too much stuff goes off in kind of a fantasy direction instead of straight ahead horror. I like for a horror show, I want consistency. I want to know week after week that I'm watching a horror program, okay? And not all this going down that fantasy road over and over again where there's really there's not even any elements of horror. And there were times where Tales from the Dark Side did that. Well, Monsters was more consistent, and there are really a lot of good episodes. There are a lot of fun episodes of Monsters. It's a cheesy show, sure. And sure, every fucking episode, just like Tales from the Dark Side, usually revolves around just one set because it's a very low budget show. But it was more consistently entertaining. It's just more consistently entertaining, and I really like the intro to it is fun, you know, with the camera going in that house and you see these monsters in there and everything. It's got a very memorable intro. Is the intro to Monsters as creepy and unsettling as the Tales from the Dark Side intro? No. It doesn't even try to do that same kind of thing. Instead, it's just more fun. It's cheesy. But at the same time, when I was a little kid, I thought there was something creepy about it when that guy, when he turns out the light and the camera goes into his face and he's kind of doing that laugh and then it says Monsters on the screen. I really loved that. But there are a lot of good episodes of Monsters. So that show stood out to me as a kid a lot. And someday I just need to make a video just about that show, talking about, like, pointing out different episodes of it. There's an episode with Steve Buscemi in it. It's called Bed and Bore. I love that episode. That's a good one. There's an episode where this newly married couple, they get stuck on this big, huge spider web, and then at the end, this big, huge spider comes out. That one's called Bond of Silk. That's a really good one. There's one about this ugly, demonic looking statue. He's real scary looking. It comes to life to kill this couple out in the desert. That episode is called Rain Dance. That one jumps into my mind. There's quite a few really memorable, good episodes, fun episodes of that show. Monsters was just a fun, low budget show, and overall a better show than Tales from the Dark Side. Now, the last two shows, actually I want to mention 3 more shows in this video. The next show I want to talk about, though, is The Hitchhiker. This overall, out of all the shows I'm going to talk about, The Hitchhiker is my #1 favorite show of all of them. And what I love about The Hitchhiker is how psychological it is. The Hitchhiker is a thriller type show. It has elements of the supernatural and horror that certainly pervade it. I would still call it a horror show, but it's a lot of psychological horror and thriller elements that come into play. A lot of real life type shit goes down on The Hitchhiker. And I grew up watching it. First it was on HBO, and then after the initial run on HBO, it got picked up and put on USA Network. I was always a big fan of The Hitchhiker. So many memorable. First of all, let's talk about the intro. Are you noticing a common theme that all of these classic horror shows had very memorable opening themes that just get stuck in your head and they never leave? Well, that's the way The Hitchhiker is. The music, that composer that came up with the opening song to The Hitchhiker is a genius because it's one of the best, most well-crafted intro songs ever. And you got the guy, you know, the hitchhiker walking out in total desolation. He's just walking out in the desert all alone. And then that music just perfectly accompanies the on-screen visual. It's just got that pure, nice 80s sound to it. And then the closing credits song that this guy did, there are 2 different ones that play over the course of the show, and both of them kick ass. So it's got great intro music and outro music that this guy did. And the episodes themselves, just very memorable, psychological horror, thriller elements. Just think about the fact, you know, the EC Comics horror series, how they'd have comics like Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, The Haunt of Fear. Those were pure horror, but then you get the comics called shock suspense stories and crime suspense stories. The best example I can give you for a show like The Hitchhiker is that The Hitchhiker is very reminiscent to me in a lot of ways of those comic lines of crime suspense stories, shock suspense stories, in the sense that it's a lot of human type horror going on, a lot of psychological stuff, person-on-person interaction and the horror that can come from that, all that kind of stuff. So I really love that show. Some standout episodes of The Hitchhiker are, there's one called Man's Best Friend. Guys, I don't want to spoil that episode for you, but seek that episode out. It's one of my favorite episodes. I love it because it's right up here, my friends. A lot of the worst things that can happen to us in life, okay, is because of right up here in our own minds. Our minds can be a very dangerous place. The grasp some people have on sanity, on reality versus things that aren't reality, it's so tenuous, my friends. There are things in life that can happen. There's stress that can happen in life. Traumatic things can happen in life that can instantly make our minds go from sane to insane, from balanced to very unbalanced in the blink of an eye. And I find that kind of thing a lot of times very scary, just what goes on in the human psyche. And an episode like Man's Best Friend, is perfect as far as that's concerned. Just check that episode out and you'll see what I mean. That is some psychological horror right there. And so I love that one. That's probably my all-time favorite Hitchhiker episode. I also love the one with Gary Busey. He plays a televangelist in that one with something in his past that he's trying to hide. He's got a skeleton in his closet, all right. That's a really good one. And Gary Busey is a crazy motherfucker to begin with. And it always oozes through his performances. That's the thing about these actors, my friends. These ones, a lot of times, you can sense the real person. They may be playing a role, but at the same time, the real person is going to come out. It's impossible for that person not to come out in some way, shape, or form. So having Gary Busey play this crazy televangelist with this secret that he's hiding, he's just perfect for the role in that one. That one's called, guys, I forget right now. I'm doing this video, Stream of Consciousness. Oh, it's called WGOD. That's the name of that episode, WGOD. So look up that episode if you haven't seen it. That's a standout one. There's one with Peter Coyote called The Last Scene. That's a good standout episode. There's also one from one of the later seasons from the USA Network run that has Alan Thicke. You know the guy from Growing Pains? All right, Alan Thicke is in this episode. I forget what it's called. It's something, it has Tough Guys or something like that in the title. But anyway, just look up The Hitchhiker, Alan Thicke, and you'll find the episode I'm talking about. He plays a crazy movie director in that episode, and I love that one. It's a good one. I could go on and on about individual episodes of The Hitchhiker. It's a great show. I highly recommend it. So definitely, if you've never seen The Hitchhiker, seek it out. Get some of the DVD releases that were put out officially back in the early 2000s. You can also find, there's ways like on YouTube or somehow you can get copies of the entire series. Any way you can slice it, try to find a way to watch The Hitchhiker. I highly recommend that show. Now, I just want to talk about two more shows. The next show I want to mention is Freddy's Nightmares. Guys, Freddy's Nightmares is not, the Citizen Kane of fucking horror. It's not, some great masterpiece of a show. But I'll tell you what, there is something I just love. I love me some Freddy's Nightmares. It's just a fun show. You know how I was talking about Tales from the Dark Side and saying so many of those episodes are just inconsistent and boring? Well, even though Freddy's Nightmares is a cheesy, low-budget show as well, it is consistently entertaining. It consistently has good storylines that keep you enthralled all the way to the end. I don't give a fuck what you say about Freddy's Nightmares. You can say it's a cheesy show, a cheesy cash-in, whatever. Watch some of the episodes. They're consistently entertaining from start to finish. Okay? I've always liked Freddy's Nightmares, and one of the ones that really scared me when I was a kid, I used to stay up late to see Freddy's Nightmares. I would stay up late when everyone else had gone to bed, and I was supposed to be in bed, but I'd stay up until real late when Freddy's Nightmares would come on, and I'd watch it by myself, and there were some episodes that scared the shit out of me. One in particular, when I was a kid, I remember watching an episode called, I think this episode, it's from season 2, and it's called Do You Know Where Your Children Are? And when I watched that one when I was a kid, I was only like 6 or 7 years old, and that episode creeped me out. It had a dark, scary atmosphere. Other episodes that have a similar atmosphere are Missing Persons from the first season. You also have Sister's Keeper, I believe it's called. That episode has a sinister tone to it where it tries to be scary throughout the thing. So there are really good episodes, and despite the budget limitations and everything, I think they really tried. It seems to me they tried to make a quality show. And I wish Freddy's Nightmares had went longer than 2 seasons. I wish Freddy's Nightmares had went 3 or 4 seasons. It's a shame they had to cancel the damn thing because it was a fun show. It kept you engaged. And there's just too many episodes of Freddy's Nightmares to name that I think are standout. One that I'll tell you another one right now. It's the one with, it's from the first season, and it's got Jeffrey Combs is in it. You know who Jeffrey Combs is, right? From Reanimator and From Beyond and Castle Freak. The guy's a fucking legend. Well, anyway, Jeffrey Combs is in this episode. And he plays this guy running a pizza shop, and he starts killing people and putting human beings into fucking pizza, right, and feeding it to people. It's a good episode. I love it. I forget what that one's called though, but you can look it up. Just type in Freddy's Nightmares and Jeffrey Combs, and you'll find the episode I'm talking about. Standout episode, very memorable. So give Freddy's Nightmares a chance. I mean, that show right now is streaming on a lot of streaming platforms. There's no reason why you should pass up Freddy's Nightmares. Give it a chance. I'd rather sit down and watch Freddy's Nightmares episodes than Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. You know what I mean? I mean, hell, let's just face it. Some of the Freddy's Nightmares movies were better than the later actual mainline Nightmare on Elm Street series. So yeah, good show, Freddy's Nightmares. The one other show I want to mention that made the most impact on me. Now keep in mind, guys, I'm not going to talk about every anthology horror show ever made in this video, okay? I'm just talking about the ones that have made the biggest impact on me. And the one other one I want to mention is obviously none other than Tales from the Crypt. Guys, I'll never forget seeing on TV, on HBO, when they started pimping out Tales from the Crypt. Before it even premiered, they started doing these commercials for it where they'd show The Crypt Keeper and talking about this new show called Tales from the Crypt. And I was only 5 years old at the time, and I remember thinking, I didn't know what the fuck it was going to be. For all I knew, it was going to be a show where it had this skeleton guy, the Crypt Keeper, as the main character in every episode. I didn't know. And I waited with bated breath for that show to premiere. And the way they premiered it is they showed the very first 3 episodes of the first season all together like a movie, okay? With end credits and everything. They showed The Man Who Was Death and All Through the House, and that episode called Dig That Cat, He's Real Gone. That is one of the stupidest fucking titles. I mean, I feel like my IQ has dropped like 30 points just saying that title of that episode. But anyway, here's my point. You can tell it came from the 50s, all right? The comic book writers that came up with that title, it sounds like it came from the 50s. But here's the thing. I loved it from the jump. Now, Tales from the Crypt got better as it went along. The first season's not even as good as season 2. Season 2 has so many standout episodes, as well as season 3 and season 4. Guys, I could spend so much time just telling you all of my favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt. One of my favorite episodes is Four-Sided Triangle. That's the one where this guy, he's married to this woman, but he's got this girl, and I don't know how they got this girl. All right, she's this girl is staying on their property, and they have her doing work and all this shit. She's played by what's her name? Patricia Arquette, I think. Is that her name? She's one of the Arquette sisters. She's the one that played in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. Anyway, they got this girl on their farm, all right, and she's like their servant. I don't know what they got on her and how they're holding her there. But anyway, the guy, the farmer, he fantasizes about this girl. And when he sees that she's developing an attraction towards this fucking scarecrow, he thinks to himself, hey, you know what I'll do? I'm gonna pull down my skivvies, and I'm going to dress up as this fucking clown-looking scarecrow, and I'm going to see if I can get me some action. So this pervert, this guy, he dresses up as this clown-looking scarecrow, and sure enough, he does that. He seduces this girl and everything. It's a wild episode. I love the atmosphere and the music that it plays. I remember seeing it when I was a kid, and there's this weird spacey music motif that plays in that episode. I love it. Four-Sided Triangle. It's from season 2. Other awesome episodes man, it's just so many. I love Three's a Crowd. Very depressing, downbeat ending to that one. I love On a Dead Man's Chest. On a Dead Man's Chest is from season 4, and it's about this rock star who gets a tattoo, and there ends up being this gigantic like snake thing that comes out of the tattoo. It's a cool, funny episode. Guys, so many. Tales from the Crypt, for the most part, was a very consistent show as far as delivering shocks, delivering horror. There are so many episodes with the dead returning from the grave, with zombies that are putrefied looking, with their tongues sticking out and the flesh rotted away. So many episodes. It's like the tagline to Tales from the Crypt. I remember back at the time when they would advertise on HBO, they'd say murder, madness, mayhem. And that's what the show was. Very consistent with delivering that. And whether it be an episode with a rotting corpse returning from the grave, coming right out of the ground to seek its revenge, or an episode about someone getting vengeance on another person and killing them, whatever the case, it's just a great fucking show. Tales from the Crypt marries the psychological horror of a show like The Hitchhiker with the monster mayhem of a show, like Monsters, bringing all those elements together. So Tales from the Crypt, just an all-time classic anthology horror show, and I could go on and on about it. But yeah, guys, those are my favorite shows of those anthology horror shows. Those are the ones that made the biggest impact on me. Obviously, there are other anthology shows. We could go on and on about them, like Twilight Zone, and then there was Amazing Stories, and Twilight Zone actually went through multiple iterations of that show, because you had the original run, then you had an 80s run. Oh, I like Night Gallery. That was another Rod Serling show. Night Gallery, I really like that. There's some standout episodes of that. And then later on, in the 2000s, they did shows like Masters of Horror and Fear Itself. So we could talk about lots of other anthology horror shows, but I really wanted to keep it to those 5, to The Hitchhiker, Tales from the Dark Side, Monsters, Freddy's Nightmares, and Tales from the Crypt, because those 5 are the ones that made the biggest impact on me and carry the most weight with me. I have the most love towards those 5 shows, and if I were ranking them, I definitely put The Hitchhiker and Tales from the Crypt and Freddy's Nightmares as the top three. I'd actually put Monsters and Tales from the Dark Side the lowest, just because those two shows were the most inconsistent from episode to episode. They just couldn't deliver the shocks, deliver the horror as good as and entertainment as well as the other three I just named, especially Tales from the Dark Side. And like I said, it's a shame because it had the scariest intro ever, but the show doesn't match up with it. It's save for a few episodes. So yeah, guys, that's all I'm gonna say for this video. You let me know in the comments what your favorite horror television shows are, and you know, in the future, I'll when I get around to it, I'll try to review like specific episodes of horror shows that are just really standouts. And that'd be a fun thing to do sometime in the future. But this was just a general overview of my 5 favorite, most noteworthy horror television shows. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. And I'll be seeing you again really, really soon.